this is Mrs. K. You're watching Mrs. K's Healthy Eating channel, and we're here to help you to eat well and get cooking. Right, everyone. I've now washed hands and I've washed down my surfaces. I've got my chopping boards ready and I've got all my ingredients out. I've obviously pre-cooked a few things so that it doesn't take too long to show you how to make our dish. Now, what we're making is we're going to do a meal that is really healthy for children, for teenagers, and for the whole family. We're going to try and make a meal that is high in calcium to go with our calcium topic. So, what are we going to make? We're going to make a traditional, well, slightly traditional macaroni cheese. But in making the macaroni cheese, there is a really important skill that we're going to be learning. And the skill is making a white sauce. And in fact, we're going to be adding cheese. So you could say we're making a cheese sauce. But the basic white sauce is the same. And you can use that for all sorts of things. Now, what I thought we'd do is macaroni cheese is normally just macaroni, which is pasta and cheese sauce. But I wanted to do a twist on that. I wanted to try and incorporate my vegetables into that dish and make it a whole meal. So what we're going to do is we're going to have our macaroni. Now, I couldn't get macaroni. I didn't have any in my store cupboard, but I did have pasta. So I'm going to use pasta. I also used something which I would like to encourage you all to do, which is to use a added fibre pasta. So I got some, it's triple the fibre on these rather than just using the plain white fibre. You can use pasta, should I say. You can use any kind of pasta for macaroni cheese if you haven't got it. Macaroni does actually the actual pasta takes a lot longer to cook than normal pasta. To make your pasta, you put your pasta on to boil on the cooker with boiling water. Don't forget to always add boiling water to your pasta. You can boil the kettle first and add boiling water to the pot, or you can boil your water first, then add your pasta. Never put pasta into cold water. It makes it soggy. So always put pasta into boiling water. So I've made my pasta just to save time. Here we are. I've got my pasta ready. As soon as my pasta was cooked, I took the saucepan to my sink and I poured the pasta straight into my colander. And then I put it into a dish to catch the water that was dripping out. I did not walk across the kitchen with my dripping colander because, as I've said before, a colander which is full of pasta or rice drips starchy water. So you get a slippery water dropping on your floor, and that's when you can slip. So always put your colander inside a dish to catch. As you can see, it's caught a whole load of the water. Okay, so that's just sitting on one side waiting for me to make my dish. That's the first thing. We're now going to look at making the sauce. Now, there are three ways of making a sauce. There's the roux method, there's the all-in-one method, and then there's the corn flour method. The corn flour method I usually do in my microwave, where you just boil the milk, or you can boil the milk in a saucepan and then you add corn flour, which is mixed in with a bit of water. That's a very easy way of making a sauce. But the favourite ways of making sauces, the more popular ways of making sauce is either the roux method or the all-in-one. Now, roux method, I will do at another stage, but today I'm going to start with the simpler one, which is the all-in-one method. Now, in my classrooms, when we do the all-in-one method, often children get this mixed up. So I want you to look carefully at how we're going to do this. So, for the recipe, we can either do, the recipe I'm going to put up is either for 2 portions or 4 portions. So I am today going to make 4 portions because I'm going to make a family meal. So for 4 portions we need 500 mils of milk. So obviously if you were doing a 2 portion it would be 250 mils of milk. I'm just going to collect my saucepan before I put it in the cooker. So I've got my saucepan here and I've got my jug and I need to measure 500 mils of milk. So there we go. Don't forget, when you measure, never hold the jug because you will never get an accurate reading. Always put your jug on the surface and then bend down to check your level. Right, so we're nearly up to 500. There we go, 500 mils. Now the reason we have to measure the milk and the flour and the butter, I'm going to pour that in, all in cold. Okay? So we've got our milk in our saucepan now. Now we're going to add butter and flour. And the butter and the flour need to be measured because if you use too much, your sauce could be too thick and gloopy. If you use too little, your sauce could be too runny and then you won't have a nice coating sauce. We want a nice coating sauce for our pasta. So the recommended ratio is 40, you could use up to 50, but I'm going to use 40 grams of either margarine or butter. What have I done with my butter? I thought, here it is, butter and my flour. So I'm going to measure 40 grams of butter. My scale, I'm going to measure 40 grams of butter. Let's see how accurate I am. What's that? 36 grams. Right, so I'm just going to add a little bit more. 40 grams. Perfect. Okay. Right, so that's my butter. And all I'm going to do now is pop the butter into my saucepan. As easy as that. Then we're going to put 40 grams of flour. So again, we're going to measure our flour. Right. 17, 32, there we go, 40. That's just over 40, so I'm going to take that off. Right, so I've measured 40 grams of flour. Right, I'm going to put that in. Now, I wouldn't recommend using wholemeal flour because the bits in the white sauce don't always go down well. You'd be better off if you wanted to add more fibre to your dish to use wholemeal pasta, for example. Right, so that's why this is called all-in-one method, because we've got milk, flour and butter all added in all at once. Now we're going to take it over to the cooker and I'm going to put the cooker on. I'm going to put it on to number 7 to start, 6 or 7. And the all-in-one method, you have to keep stirring. Now this actually takes quite a while. Whenever I'm at school, all the children keep saying to me, it's not getting thick, miss, it's not getting thick. But it actually does. You just have to be patient. And I always think using a whisk is the best thing to make sure that you have no lumps, because the secret to a white sauce is making it with no lumps. So the milk is still cold, the butter hasn't melted yet. Our butter is going to melt, so I'm just going to let that melt for a moment. But I need to tell you why you mustn't put it on a high heat. Do you know that sugar burns? Have you ever tried to melt sugar in a saucepan? It goes really brown. Now, when you boil milk on a high heat, you will find that you will have a brown mark, burnt mark on the bottom of the saucepan. And if you're making a sauce and you've got that burnt milk at the bottom of the saucepan and you stir with a whisk, all those brown bits come in your sauce and it's not very appetizing. So we need to make sure we don't burn the Why does milk do that? That's because, like when sugar burns, milk has its own sugar. And there's a special sugar in milk that only milk has. And does anybody know what it's called? Well, you'll all know the name when I say it. It's called lactose. Lactose is the natural sugar in milk. That's why so many people like milk, because actually it's got a slightly sweet flavour. And that flavour, that sweetness, comes from the milk sugar, which is called lactose. But lactose, just like any other sugar, will caramelize, it will burn on a high heat. So the way we need to boil milk is never to put it on a high heat so that we stop the burning. And I always have a competition in my classroom. I always say to the pupils, right, I will know if you've had your cookers on too high a heat if you've burnt your milk. And we always see if there's anybody who burns their milk. And sometimes we've had a whole class, look, my butter's already starting to melt now, and I'm going to keep stirring. Sometimes we've had a whole class that no one has burnt their milk. And that is brilliant, because to be honest, I always warn them, if you burn your milk, you're going to have to scrub the bottom of that pan. And believe me, it's not easy to scrub. So here we go. Just be patient. Stir your flour and butter in the milk. Keep stirring, because this is just going to get thick all on its own. Okay. Now, what other things? Here we are making a dish high in calcium. We've got our milk, and we're going to make a cheese sauce, so we've got cheese. So we've actually got 2 portions of dairy in our dish. Plus, I'm going to add cauliflower. Cauliflower is really nice in a macaroni cheese because cauliflower doesn't have a lot of taste, but it has a nice texture. Cauliflower has fibre, so it's good for fibre. It's got calcium. It's got lots of vitamin C, and it's got potassium. So lots of important vitamins and minerals. So here we are. We're getting this prepared. So calcium. I'm actually going to add peas as well. Now peas are packed full of protein. Actually, peas are part of the pea and pulse family, and they contain protein. So we've got a bit of protein with our peas. Also, peas are very high in fibre. You know the little shell around the pea, the little that little skin around the pea, that is all fibre, so that's really good for you. All my butter has now melted, and very soon this is going to start thickening up. Okay, and you'll know when it's thick when it starts to bubble. That's when it's ready, when you can see the milk bubbling. Anyway, so what else are we going to add? And I'm going to add some carrots to my macaroni cheese. So I've chosen 3 portions of vegetables to mine. You might not like those. Broccoli is another brilliant vegetable. As we've said before, broccoli is so high in vitamin C, fibre, there's calcium, there's vitamin B, really good vegetable. So you could choose that. Sweet corn is another lovely one to put in a macaroni cheese. But as I said when we did the fruit and vegetable section of the Eat Well guide, think of creative ways of including vegetables in your diet that you perhaps hadn't thought of before. And if you don't like to have a portion of vegetables on your plate separately, add them in to sauces. Cauliflower is a really good one because you can also mix it, you can chop it up finely, and you don't see it. So you can barely taste it because cauliflower doesn't actually have a taste. So it's quite bland, so it mixes really well with the cheese sauce. Why do you think cauliflower cheese is such a popular dish? Because it's a really good way of eating cauliflower because it has no taste. So the cheese sauce gives it a taste. Right, my milk is really hotting up now. Stirring away, keep stirring, don't stop stirring. I know it takes a bit of time. So I'm going to have my macaroni cheese, which is high in calcium. I'm adding vegetables, so I'm adding my vitamins and minerals and fibre, but I'm going to add something else. My husband loves his macaroni cheese with some chicken. So I've got some frozen chopped chicken, or some chicken breast that's been cooked and sliced up, and I'm actually going to add some chicken to it. You could add a bit of ham to your macaroni cheese, some lean bacon. Right, you could turn it into a pasta bake and add tuna, for example. Right, my sauce is getting thicker now. I'm waiting. I'm going to turn the heat down slightly. Wrong direction. There we go. Right, it's really getting thick now, so I'm stirring away. Now, I don't know if you've realised, I'm going to be making a cheese sauce, but no way have I put my cheese in. Please, you do not put your cheese all in until your cheese sauce, your white sauce, is finished. And I'll tell you why later. So here we are. My sauce is now beautifully thick and it is now bubbling. Now, what you do when it starts to bubble is I turn my heat off. Now, if you've got a gas hob, you wouldn't turn your heat off, but on an electric, you've still got the heat coming through. Because you're supposed to just keep stirring vigorously for about 1 to 2 minutes after it's bubbled, just to give the chance for all the flour molecules to burst open and make your sauce thick. Because that's what's happened. That's how the sauce has got thick. It's because of the flour. And the flour bursts, every little grain of flour bursts open at about 80 degrees heat. And now, actually the fancy word for it is called gelatinization. So we've got our sauce nice and thick because of our flour, which bursts open and all the starch bursts out and makes a thick sauce. Okay, so I think that's going to be about it. So here we are. Here's my sauce. A lovely thick coating consistency. If I'd wanted a thicker sauce, I would have put more flour and butter in. Now, once your sauce is finished and off the heat, let's take this out of the way, then we can add flavours. So, I'm going to add some cheese. Now, I've weighed out my cheese. I'm going to add some cheese. Now, I don't want to have too much cheese because I want to put a little bit of cheese on the top of my macaroni cheese. So I'm going to use half the cheese just to give it a nice cheesy flavour. Don't forget, I use a lower fat variety of cheese so that I cut down on the fat, the saturated fat. Now, if you put your cheese in straight after you take it off the cob, sprinkle it in, the cheese, and you stir it, the cheese completely melts in the hot sauce. So if you look here, you can see there are no bits of cheese even in my sauce. All the cheese is rubbed in. What I like to do is add a little bit of Parmesan cheese as well, because Parmesan is, a little bit of Parmesan goes a long way. And so I like to add a tablespoon of Parmesan into my cheese, my sauce, to give it a nice strong flavour. So that's a good thing about Parmesan. Now, if you've got Parmesan or cheese that is starting to go past its date, you know, cheese develops, you can tell when cheese is going off. Make sure that you don't waste it. You can put your Parmesan cheese straight into the freezer, and it can be used frozen because it is powdered. Also, what I do is if I've got cheese that needs to be eaten up and I don't want to use it just then, I grate the cheese and put it in the freezer. And you can actually use grated cheese straight from the freezer at any time so that I don't waste any cheese. And it's always available for me to use. Okay, so there's my sauce. Now I'm going to add something to my sauce which we particularly love. And that is a good teaspoon of mustard. mustard gives such a lovely flavour to a macaroni cheese. So, there we go. Added that in. The other good thing about adding cheese, of course, is that makes your sauce even thicker. So, there's my sauce. Now, that sauce is ready. Put that straight in the sink, actually. Okay, so now I've got my sauce, I've got my pasta, and I've got the things I'm going to add in to my sauce. Now, what have I got here? I steamed some peas. I put them on the top because they didn't need as much cooking, and I steamed my carrots. So I didn't steam them. I tried not to overcook them, because they're still going to cook a little bit in our dish. So just lightly steamed. So I bought a large cauliflower, and that cauliflower was too big. I roasted half of it, which was delicious, and then I slightly steamed it till it was still firm but softened, and then I froze it. And today, when I thought we'd make our macaroni cheese with a twist, I took it out of the freezer, and now I can use it for my macaroni cheese. So that's another way of not wasting. If you've got vegetables that you have got too many of or are starting to go, slightly steam them and pop them in your freezer. So I've got my 3 vegetables ready now. Don't forget, when you peel a carrot, I'm just going to quickly remind you of our cutting skills, and our peeling is good way to peel your carrot is hold it in your fingers and bring the peel it downwards. If you can manage that, try and practice that. Okay, I know a lot of the children at school do it like this, which I actually find harder to do, more difficult, and a good chance of catching your nails. But if you keep your fingers round the side and then you pull down towards your wrist, you will find that easier. Okay, so there we go. Then, using our knife skills that we learned in the first session, using our claw grip, we're going to cut the top off, cut the tail off, move those to one side. That's going in the rubbish bin. And we're going to slice our carrots. Moving your fingers downwards all the time so that you do not have your knife anywhere near your fingers. Okay. And then you would put that in your steamer. Now, of course, at the bottom of my steamer, I have got water, which is got some of the nutrients that have leaked out of our vegetables. I'm not going to throw that water away. What I do is I put it into a jug and I put it in my fridge. So when I make something maybe tomorrow or the next day, I use that water to make gravy, or I make soup with it, or I actually cook my pasta or rice in that water, because that water's got vitamins and a few minerals in there, mainly vitamins C and B. And your pasta, of course, absorbs the water and it will absorb some of those vitamins. So a good way of making sure that we get to eat all our vitamins and don't waste them. Okay, right, I think now I'm ready to put my sauce together, to put my dish together. So I've got a nice oven-proof dish. And here I've got my chicken as well. This is ready cooked, sliced up chicken breast. Okay, so I'm going to put my pasta in first. Put my pasta in. Don't forget, we're going to bake this, so it's fine if it's cold. And this is the pasta that's half fibre, so it's added fibre to it. Looks like I'm going to have quite a lot in my dish here. Right, my cauliflower. Well, let's put my peas in. And peas give lovely colour as well. I'm going to put my carrots in. Right, so there we are. You see the cauliflower bits go a bit like broccoli. Put that in there. Another bit of cauliflower. That's going to go into the bin. There we go. I'm going to spread. Now I'm going to mix it all in. All gets mixed in. Now something we haven't spoken about is seasoning, salt and pepper. Now, so far we haven't put salt and pepper in anything, so I'm going to just add some of my chicken. And then after I've touched the chicken, I'm going to have to go and wash my hands, because after touching meat, we should always wash our hands. So I'm going to go and do that first. Here we are. I've got my seasoning. I'm going to mix in my chicken. I could have done with a bigger dish. This is going to be a lovely, nutritious family meal. I'm going to add some seasoning. I like whole grain pepper. And then our salt. And this is sea salt. Sea salt is much better salt for you. It's not as salty and better for you. So I'm going to mix that in. And now I'm going to pour over my... Now, one thing that you could do, if you don't want a skin forming over your sauce and you're not ready to use it straight away, is take a piece of cling film and place the cling film directly on top of your sauce, and that will ensure that you don't get a skin forming. So look at that lovely pouring sauce with some cheese, mustard. You can always put a bit of seasoning in your sauce as well. And I'm going to prove to you that I did not burn my sauce. If you look in my saucepan, absolutely no burning. So make sure you follow that advice. Okay, now, don't leave the sauce sitting on top. I've seen so many of my children do that. What you need to do is mix the sauce. It's a coating sauce. So what you need to do is coat all your pasta. So this is one massive twist on a macaroni cheese, isn't it? You've got your pasta, your sauce, carrots, peas, cauliflower, which you can't even see. It's invisible, except to the cook who knows it's in there. Some bits of chicken and a lovely little flavour of mustard, which brings out the flavour of your cheese sauce. Right, okay. Now, I love to have cheese bubbling on the top of mine. Now, if you were making this in the morning, you could cover this with cling film and pop it in your fridge. You could even cook it tomorrow. So your meal's all prepared, and now we're ready to bake it. So I'm going to put some grated cheese on the top. But if I wanted to cut down on the cheese and have more in the sauce, the other thing I can do is make some breadcrumbs. So I have a magic mix, which is very, very easy. And I've got a piece of bread, and it's a piece of seeded bread because that's all we have. And I'm going to make some breadcrumbs. There we go. All done already. And I'm going to add some breadcrumbs because they give it a lovely, crunchy topping when you bake it. So I'm going to add some breadcrumbs to the top, and I'm going to mix it in with my cheese. crunch as well as a lovely bubbling cheese on the top. Okay, so here we are. I pop this in the oven now for about 40 minutes and then it will be ready to serve. So I hope you all get on and enjoy making this meal, and don't forget session 5 will be coming up soon, and session 5 we're going to be looking at protein, and I've got some very interesting facts for you to know about protein that you perhaps didn't know before. Right, oven temperature, we're going to put it at 180 and we're going to bake for about 40 minutes. Right, so pop that in and there's our dinner ready for later. I hope you've enjoyed the session today. I hope you've learned lots about calcium and how important it is for you to eat. And I hope that you will enjoy making the macaroni cheese. Of course, there are other dishes that are high in calcium, and I am going to make them and put them up as well on the channel. For instance, you've got bread and butter pudding. That's a lovely dish high in calcium. And we've got our vitamin D with our spread on the bread. So we've got pancakes. It's high in calcium because you're using milk in that. And you've got your egg yolks with your vitamin D. You've got even making a batch of scones has got milk in it. So anything that you're using milk, if you're a vegan, you don't use dairy, you can use your dairy alternative milks to make all these dishes, and tofu instead of cheddar cheese. So there are lots of ideas for using dairy, and instead of with a white sauce, what you can do, if you think, oh, I haven't quite made enough sauce, add some natural yogurt or add some cream cheese into it. You can bulk it up by using yogurt or cream cheese. So there, I hope I've given you some good hints for enjoying and adding calcium into your diets. See you next time.